All right, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast. We haven't recorded in a while.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties.
Yes.
Um, so where we left off in previous podcasts, we were talking a lot about kind of going through a little series, I guess, if you will, whatever, on Christianity and government.
Hmm.
Really, to be honest with you, I don't know exactly
Where we
specifically
left
where we
off.
left off,
Yeah.
but probably should have looked it up. But
But it
rather
was a
than
hot topic at that time.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, still is, but
Hmm.
rather than pick that back up, I'm sure I think probably in maybe a couple weeks we'll look back, see where we left off, and just pick that back up. But to
Yeah.
kind of come back, um, this morning I had a question that I thought this could make a good conversation, which is why do Christians when they hear the gospel, sometimes they've been a Christian for 10 years, 20 years,
Right.
30 years, and maybe they go to a church, and at that church really focuses a lot on the gospel and on the message of Jesus's righteousness for them, his death, his resurrection, that is this dominating message of the church. You've seen this a lot through decades of ministry. I've seen this.
Hmm.
Sometimes those Christians, they've been Christians a long time, and they're hearing the old gospel, the gospel they heard at the very beginning, and it's almost like they're hearing it for the first time.
Yeah.
People have talked about it as like it's almost this rediscovery. They're
Yeah.
discovering again the foundational message of all of Christianity, and it can be like this massive breath of fresh air. Almost like, I mean, you've seen this, like revolutionary.
Yeah.
Someone's been a Christian for 20 years and
Yeah.
they're like, my whole life is getting turned upside down right
Yep.
now. And you're like, why? What are you hearing at church that's turning your life upside down? They're like, the gospel.
Yeah.
You're like, really? That's kind of like saying, like, I'm 35 and someone's telling me the ABCs and it's revolutionary,
Yeah.
revolutionizing
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
So the question this morning is, why is that? Why is it that so many Christians seem like they have been deprived of the gospel? Like they have not been hearing the gospel. Why is it that a faithful Christian for decades can hear the gospel and almost it's like, man, this is like the first time I'm hearing it. It
Yeah.
feels like
Yeah.
breath of fresh air, rediscovery, and really can change so much about their life and their walk with God. I think we can connect that a little bit to how we've been talking about Christianity in America and the government and things like that as well, because I even see this maybe at a broader level in our culture that people seem to now be realizing like I think we need God. Like people are almost rediscovering our American roots of being people who believed in a creator, believed in Jesus, believed that that should shape how we do life, culture, government.
Yeah.
And people even now seem really hungry for that. So I'll start with that question to you as
Yeah.
someone,
Yeah.
especially you've seen this decades in ministry. Why do Christians seem, many Christians seem so hungry for the gospel?
Okay. So two things came to my mind immediately. One, it seems like, all right, in the culture, something's failed, right? So if people are like sensing a deeper need, a deeper sense of meaning, purpose, a deeper sense of there must be more, it must mean something in the culture has failed them.
Hmm.
And then I think too in the church, if the church, if you're going to church and all of a sudden you're being reached at a different place through the gospel, it also is telling us that there's something that's not present commonly, ordinarily,
Hmm.
in the church, that all of a sudden the gospel is this strange thing, but it's this strange reaching power. And then the other thing I think of two things. I started thinking of the Reformation, which is in the 1500s, there was this massive rediscovery of the gospel. And church historians and even secular historians will say that is one of the most transformative times in the history of the world.
Hmm.
Church history will say something like, this is the greatest outpouring of God's Spirit since Pentecost, which is when Jesus ascended, is crowned king, and he unleashes his kingdom by the power of his Spirit into this world's realm, and the church begins. So it's fascinating that most folks recognize that when the gospel's recovered, things change. Like people
Mhm.
change, relationships change, families change, marriages change, cultures change.
Mhm.
And we could say that the United States has been living off the fumes of the fruit of the gospel for a long time.
Right.
And those fumes could either be, that fruit could either be kind of dissipating and receding and out of the culture, and people are starting to realize it.
Right.
And then we could say that maybe in the church, the gospel is not primarily the message that people are hearing. And then the other thing I think personally, I know for you, I know for me, I was that person that was in the church doing high octane ministry all over the world, starting campus ministries in the Soviet Union right after the coup, watching God work in powerful ways, going up to these elite universities, and yet doing ministry like incredible ministry, evangelism, discipleship, seeing God work all over the world, and yet having within me this exhaustion that went down to the roots of my being. And it wasn't until I sat in my first church history class that a professor started unpacking the grammar of the gospel for pastors. Like these are future pastors. And he starts unpacking it through church history and through major characters in church history that had rediscovered the gospel. And then he would take that moment to unpack the grammar of someone else's achievement, not yours, of of a work being done for you, not you doing the work, um, of Jesus's life, death, and resurrection and ascension, and not your life, death, and resurrection and ascension, of a finished work, not of an unfinished work that you're always trying to achieve and you never can get to the end of.
Mhm.
And as he unpacked that for the first time in my life, uh, those exhausted roots started being reached. Um, and then I think it's important to realize that the gospel, the Bible calls the imperishable seed, which means that the gospel carries divine life and divine power in it. And so we use this all the time in our church. We use this; it's kind of a regular thing. But if you were to plant a piece of glass in the ground, and water it and fertilize it and become a glass whisperer and say, "Oh, glass, grow," that glass will never grow. That glass has no life, no power in it. And I think in the church today, we are trying to make glass grow.
Mhm.
We are we are watering glass, we are fertilizing it in our messages. It's our discipleship material, and it can be anything from attain the spiritual experience to here's 9 biblical principles on how to be a great leader, whatever it is, that is glass. And instead of it not growing, it actually kind of slices you up.
Mhm.
But you plant an imperishable seed in the ground and it grows. And I think what's happening is that imperishable seed that carries divine life and divine power in it, when it hits a Christian, it grows.
Mhm.
And I think that's what it reaches us, it renews us, it puts us back together again. It's like, that's what I need. And that's my oxygen and energy for the Christian life.
Mhm.
I think those are the things that immediately come to mind for me.
Yeah. What to get to help kind of bring that practically on the ground when you talked about like your exhausted roots,
Hmm.
what very specifically were what why were you exhausted?
Yeah,
What was exhausting?
that's
Like what
good.
were the specific kind of law driving things
Yeah,
that maybe were good things? It's not
yeah.
that it's bad,
No, ministry's great.
but what was exhausting you and why, the history professor, Dr. Hannah's
Yeah.
stuff, like,
The exhaustion literally was coming from this not realizing it, but trying to justify your existence and trying to connect with God, trying to get his blessings,
Yeah.
trying to get his love and acceptance, trying to get him to notice you, trying to maintain the Christian life, trying to keep it
How are
going.
you doing that?
How was I doing
Was
that?
that like was that did you wake up feeling like I've got to read my Bible
Oh,
for
absolutely.
37 minutes every day, or was it I've got to evangelize, I've got to reach
All of that. All
Russia?
that. All of that. It's get up earlier,
Okay.
no breakfast or whatever, no Bible
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
breakfast. It was fast. It was all the spiritual
Okay.
disciplines. It was getting up like when no one should get up, where
Being
you
an
should be
awesome
asleep.
Christian,
Yeah, being
being
an
better
awesome
than
Christian. And then my whole day making sure I'm sharing Christ,
yeah.
discipleship. When I hear stuff over the world, go to prayer. But I mean, again, all good things.
Yeah. Yeah, for
But
sure.
all things that were tumbling into this God-shaped, God-sized, this justification, gospel-shaped hole in our soul.
Yeah.
And it was an effort to try to change my life so I can feel good about myself and
Yeah.
God can feel good about me. It was efforts to make sure I'm doing enough so that God notices me and keeps me in his favor,
Yeah.
in his acceptability. But the dirty secret is, and every Christian knows this, is that you're a sinner.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't ever do enough.
Right.
You can't ever discipline yourself enough to stop a sinful nature.
There's no end to it.
There's absolutely no end. And you just kept thinking maybe this next form of ministry or form of righteousness is going to work.
Yeah.
This is the power that's going to eventually change me. So I'm good. God's good with me, and I can do whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
And so there was never an end. It was never finished. There was never enough. You can never do enough. And what we know now, I mean, that's what the law is.
Yeah. Because you say you're trying to justify yourself, and I know a lot of Christians can be like, "What does that exactly mean?"
Yeah.
But in the most simple way, it's trying to do X, Y, or Z. Like for I think a lot of American Christians and what we hear in church, a lot of times it's like, I want to be really disciplined with my Bible reading and my prayer. So like I want to be doing my spiritual disciplines well. And then yes, like the next maybe layer would be like, and then are you sharing the gospel with other people?
Yeah.
Are you going